Alright, so these would be our notes on igneous rocks. So far we've been looking at matter and made up of atoms, and atoms come together to form compounds. These compounds can form something called minerals. We looked at them briefly. And then these minerals come together to form rocks. And we have three types. And the first type we're going to look at is igneous rocks, igneous. And that means rocks formed from a melt. So these are formed from really two basic substances, or you got magma, and you have lava. And depending on where they form, where the magma ends up, so magma, this is underneath the earth, this is on the surface right here. And then you see that right here, magma below the surface. And anytime we have some type of rock or a large formation formed from magma, we call that plutonic. Or you can also see it called a pluton. So certain places, even some mountains that have been uplifted, they are plutonic rocks. They were formed underneath the earth and were then uplifted through, some kind of tectonic activity. And then any kind of type of magma on the surface of the earth is called lava, and we call those volcanic igneous rock. So we have plutonic igneous rocks and volcanic igneous rocks. And these can also be these below the surface. They can be called intrusive, so inside, and extrusive, which are the volcanic. Okay, and extrusive, above the surface, so outside, exit, outside the crust. So and generally these have large crystals. You've kind of seen this already in some of your readings, I'm sure. And these have small crystals. These large intrusive rocks, they form these large crystals because they cool very slowly. These cool rather quickly. Crystals don't have time to form, so you don't really notice them. Now these igneous rocks, whether they're intrusive or extrusive, can be classified according to their chemical composition. Okay, and that really is what minerals and other compounds make up the rock. And they look at that by the color. So I'm going to erase this stuff here. So they really look at the color of the rock, and when you pick it up, it's something very easy to see. So you can have really a light colored rock, and it can be white, light gray, tan, or pink. And we look at the rock, and you can tell it's an igneous rock. Doesn't have layers like a sedimentary rock, and isn't shiny like a metamorphic rock. It doesn't have banding like a metamorphic rock, but these are usually one color. Unless they have crystals in them, then they add some different colors to them. But a lot of times these are really solid colors. And these ones that are called light, they have a name for them. They call them felsic. And these kind of rocks, these white and these light colored rocks, generally have a lot of, they're rich in silica, SiO2. And that's the main constituent in there, and that is light colored, so that gives these igneous rocks, these felsic igneous rocks, that light color. Okay, but they can also be something called mafic, and that's like dark, either black or dark brown. And these have very little silica, but they're rich in iron and magnesium, and that tends to give them really dark color. You can even go really, really dark, and they call that ultramafic. So you have these really light and really dark, and then you can have an intermediate igneous rock, which is like gray, or you have some white in it and some light colors and some dark colors at the same time. They would call that intermediate. And whenever you're classifying these, you never worry about the crystals. You're just looking at the base of the rock. Okay. Now there's some exceptions to these rules, because there are some rocks that have a lot of silica in them that are dark in color. An example of that is obsidian, really shiny rock that you find around here. Looks almost like glass, forms really quickly. but because of how it's formed, it's dark in color, but it does have a lot of silica in it. And then dunite is another example of that as well. So if we keep going here, I'm going to erase this. So color is a really good way to characterize igneous rocks. So if we keep going here, I'm going to erase this. And we can also look at texture. Okay, and when you're talking texture of an igneous rock, you're talking about crystal, the size of the crystal or crystal types. And there's lots of different ways to classify that. Okay, and one is called pegmatic, and pegmatic has really large crystals, 2 to 3 centimeter. They're really large, easy to see. So if we looked at a rock, it was either mafic or felsic, we also might see it has crystals in it. And if it has really large, we could say that's a pegmatic felsic igneous rock, or pegmatic mafic igneous rock. So they can have both of these. So we can have the color, but also the crystal shape as well, or size. And there's phaneritic. Okay, but these would be very similar to pegmatic, but a little bit smaller size crystals. And then phantic, really no crystals. You can't really see them with the naked eye. And then porphyritic, this would have small crystals and large crystals at the same time. Okay, then you also have something called glassy. This is that obsidian, it just looks like a piece of glass. And very easy to see. You've probably all seen a piece of obsidian. And then vesicular, and this is bubble. This has air holes in it. And a lot of lava. That lava soap has tuff in it. That can be vesicular. But air holes. And really light. These tend to be very, very light because they have lots of air in them. And then pyroclastic. So these are rocks that are ejected when a volcanic eruption occurs. And this can be like ash or other rock, and then small fragments of the rock that's ejected when the volcano or whatever the tectonic activity that's occurring. So again, with these rocks, when you're looking at igneous rocks, rocks formed from a melt, they can be formed inside the earth, intrusive, or they can be formed outside the earth, extrusive. And then we can also classify any of those types of rocks by their color. So we can say they're really light in color, and we would call those felsic. If they're really dark in color, we would call them mafic, and even really, really dark, ultramafic. These tend to have iron and magnesium. Then they can also be intermediate, so like a gray or a middle color, and so color. But you can also go by textures. You look at the crystals in there, really large crystals, medium, then really too small, a mix of crystals, and they can have air bubbles in it, or they can be like volcanic debris. That's kind of your final notes on igneous rocks. The next thing you're going to need to do is complete the lab to identify some igneous rocks and show me that you can do that. Hope this helps. Make sure you annotate these and bring them in and show them to me. See you soon.